Shweta, I think we can start.
Wonderful.
Right.
Before I start, a quick one, Divya, can you
Mhm.
please send the
I'll do that.
question for Mr. Ajay?
I'll do that. I'll just get started and then I'll do.
Okay, perfect. We're going live now. Thank you.
Uh, yeah. So good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for the Global R&D Summit. This session, as you know, is focused on agriculture tech. Our session lead for today is Mr. Subhash Ghosh. He's the founder and CEO of Technoplat Limited and Lemon Advisors UK. He has over 2 decades of senior level corporate experience and is the founder and MD of Lemon Advisors, as I said, and Technoplat, which is a venture builder firm. Lemon has its offices in the UK and India and helps companies to grow and scale their businesses in over 30 countries. Technoplat has its offices in the UK and in Singapore and is one of the largest technology think tanks in Southeast Asia and focused on the startup, scale ups, and emerging companies across the Middle East, North Africa, APAC, and EU regions. I'll now hand it over to Mr. Ghosh to take the conversation forward. Go
Thank you,
ahead, sir.
Divya. Thank you, Divya. A very good afternoon to everybody in India and other parts of the world. I'm Subhash Ghosh, and thanks for the great introductions once again, Divya. It's exciting to be part of this session today, and I have been joined by some great industry leaders who are going to be spending over the next 60 minutes in terms of sharing their thoughts, their contributions, and how they think we can make India great again as far as farming is concerned. I have with me the following panelists. I have Mr. Subho Vishwas, who is the Global CTO at the Deshpande Foundation. Subho, you there? Can you just raise your hands? Yep, wonderful, great. I have Mr. Rajesh Shah, who is the head of Igstc initiative at TCS, that's Tata Consultancy Services. Unfortunately, I think the Rajesh is having a bit of network issue, so maybe his video is not visible, but he's very much around. We have Mr. G. Krishna Kumar, who is the Vice President at Crop Operations and Sustainability from ITC Limited. Krishna, hi there. We have Mr. Li Feng, who is the Director at IFOM Asia and Secretary General, IFOM Asia Organic Youth Forum. And last but not the least, we have Ajay Mutreja, who is the former CEO and board member of Technova India. Hi, Ajay.
Hi.
Wonderful. Thanks to each one of you for taking the time out. And this is truly indeed a global event, given the fact is we've got people from all across the globe and all corners of the globe joining in this event. We've got Shubho waking up 3 in the mornings from San Francisco, USA. We've got Li Peng at 9 p.m. Beijing time. And that's me from London at 11:18 a.m. in the morning. And we have rest of the delegates from India. So indeed a global event. So thank you once again for taking the time out, precious time out, and being part of this great discussion. We for the next 60 minutes, we basically will be talking to each one of the panelists and understanding their short thoughts. Given the fact we don't have too much of Q&A, this is going to be more of Q&A discussions in terms of understanding what all steps initiative they've taken in the past and willing to take in the future on the farming area. So without much ado, I will probably start with my first question, which is for Mr. Biswas. Mr. Biswas, can I call you Shubho? That's okay. Wonderful, thank you.
Yes, please do.
Shubho, my first question to you is, given that we are seeing a lot of young Indian entrepreneurs venturing in the agricultural sector with innovative state-of-the-art technology-based solutions, right, which is part of the emerging India now. But given the limited reach and in spite of having a global aspirations, their contribution toward the vision of doubling the farmer's income is also limited. Yeah, and that's I wouldn't say incapability. That's probably because of a problem which is generic. Now, can you sort of maybe throw some light and elaborate on your work with Green Good Labs and how open sourcing of designs and technology can contribute towards the goal in more immediate as well as sustainable way?
Sure. So I'll approach that question and address it from a couple of perspectives. One is in my current role as a global CTO at Deshpande Foundation, as well as the work we are doing at Green Good Labs. I'm going to share also the perspective of how the Silicon Valley is addressing this, and the similar dynamic is playing out here, where there are lots of young entrepreneurs who are looking at trying to reach out and have impact, and looking to scale and really make a difference, right? So there is a certain formula we follow within Deshpande Foundation that directly goes to the heart of this question, and that is, in order to have impact, and the message we give to our startups and the startups that we incubate is, we need to come up with technological solutions that have relevance. So for the lower portion of the pyramid, the biggest issue is not necessarily how flashy or technologically advanced a particular innovation is. It is about relevance, because relevance directly translates into adoption and impact. And a part of the relevance is accessibility and affordability, right? So these are at the very heart of how we go about, recommending what is the right idea to pursue to a startup if they come to us seeking for our guidance. Obviously, in this current era of pandemics, there is another big aspect that has come in, which is innovations that can help build resilient businesses, right? So anything that helps take a system that is existing, a farming system, and makes it more resilient is definitely something that has a strong appeal and is going to have a strong traction going forward. So let me give you some examples of how we are actually putting these words into action within Deshpande Foundation, right? So this example is about using technologies that are relevant, that are innovative, and that help in building resilience, right? And one of the biggest innovations that we are doing within Deshpande Foundation is to build and deliver farm ponds. We have delivered 6,000 farm ponds already, and we are on target to deliver 100,000 more in the next 4 years. It's an 800 crore project. So it's Indian rupees 800 crores, roughly about $100 million worth of investment going in, shared with the farmer. And what we are doing is trying to deliver what is really relevant and what brings resilience to the farming system, right? So, as we all know, water is one of the critical linchpins around which a farmer can then stack up. If you think of it as a stacking of solutions, they can stack up other solutions. They can stack up irrigation. They can stack up crop planning. They can do a whole bunch of things if they have assured water. And what we are doing is we are delivering farm ponds that give them the ability to have water 365 days in a year, depending on rainfall, and go from one crop to two crops and literally double their income. So think of 100,000 such farm ponds coming in that literally double the GDP of the farmer as well as the village. That's how we are putting this into action. That's a real tangible example of relevance combined with building resilience. Now, beyond that, there's a number of other ideas we are pursuing, especially with regards to bringing in satellite imagery, high resolution satellite imagery, drawing intelligence from the imagery to drive operations. There's a lot of work going on in the space of precision agriculture, and of course, there's a tremendous amount of work going on with restoring soil health, with permaculture-based agriculture. There's indigenous seeds. There's a whole bunch of work going on that we are trying to consolidate. The pieces are all there, but we call them the founding pieces of Green Revolution 2.0. And what we are trying to do is stitch these pieces together using technology. If you are okay with it, I'd like to share our vision of what we think Green Revolution 2.0 would look like. Okay?
That would be interesting, yeah. That would be interesting, okay? Yeah, sure.
Okay, so just to kind of lay the stage on what Green Revolution 1 was. Green Revolution 1 was about taking a fairly traditional way of doing farming and trying to accelerate the productivity and overcoming the vagaries of famines and droughts. But it was primarily built around 7 core principles, right? So We were adopting DDT for pesticides. We were using modified seeds. We were doing a lot of use of urea. And there was also the whole idea was about going industrial. So this was about industrial farming, mechanization, and naturally along with it came a huge amount of reliance on storage, on packaging, on transporting, and the associated capital investments. That was basically the definition of what scaling up in Green Revolution 2 in 1.0 was. However, we think Green Revolution 2.0 would look quite different. And here are the core elements of what Green Revolution 2.0 would look like. First of all, it would be based on this whole idea of local eating, local communities, and self-sustained local, loosely coupled units of economies, right? So it's going to be about localization rather than globalization. A big part of it is going to be also using local indigenous varieties of seeds rather than globalized varieties of modified seeds. A big part of it will be about using organic ways of and regenerative ways of restoring soil and soil health versus chemical-based, restoration. So regenerative agriculture is going to be a big part of it. I mentioned about water conservation and using local water. Watershed management, rainwater harvesting, those mechanisms of harvesting water rather than using irrigated water would be a big part of it. There's going to be, a big part of it is going to be FPOs and what in the United States as consumer supported agriculture, so direct to consumer. The farmer talking directly to consumers and supplying to the consumers. And so what you'll notice here is it's all about taking well-established practices that are there, stitching them together. The glue here is technology, stitching it together, and creating an alternative way of doing agriculture, which is more about loosely coupled units of systems versus this highly orchestrated top-down system that we have. And we believe that this is what's going to be the defining, these are the building blocks of what Green Revolution 2.0 would look like. And obviously with this comes the fact that if you are going local, you don't need to have as much storage, you don't need to have as much packaging, you don't need to have as much transportation. So you don't need to have as much sorting and grading, you don't need to have as much food loss because of systems not meeting the standards of some customer that you cannot see who's thousands of miles away. So there are a lot of benefits there. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Subhash.
Oh, thank you, Shubho. Thank you for the interesting deep dive. And I especially like the whole farming bit of what you mentioned, and in terms of the way you are enabling the back, do it sort of a back end, the long tail part of it. So I now move to my next question to Rajesh Urkudi. Rajesh, you there? Hello?
Yeah, very much.
Wonderful,
yes,
Rajesh.
I'm listening. Yeah.
Okay, great. Right, Rajesh. So moving on now, my question to you is, well, obviously, given that fact is, well, the majority of India's population is engaged in agriculture. We are an agri economy. I mean, but however, there's still a sort of a gap in terms of adoption of technology and or rather moving to digital marketing, right? But if you have to sort of give a shape to the Prime Minister's vision of doubling the income, farming income, what do you think should be your thoughts, and what do you think you're doing in that space? That's one. And given the fact is you are from TCS, which is one of the biggest brand technology company in the world, not just India, what is TCS's forte? And can you sort of shed a little more light into what you've been doing through the Increase initiative, and how you're sort of looking at integrating the last mile, which is the hinterland? Maybe a couple of your thoughts, if you can shed some light on this, that would be interesting.
Yeah, Subhash. So to just continue what Shubho has mentioned, I had an opportunity to visit many of the locations of Deshpande Foundation work, which is happening in and around Hubli and that region, that's northwest Karnataka per se. So just taking leaf from what he's saying, yes, the world is moving to regenerative agriculture. From consumerism, it is now moving to resilient agriculture, and that's a good change. Hopefully, with the new incumbent president in place in US, especially climate change should take the center stage, and things should move in that direction. Now, having said that, if you look at what TCS has been doing. So I would say that TCS has been one of the pioneer organizations entering into this space, especially agriculture. It was almost in 2006-7 we started our journey, and our focus was mainly smallholding farmers, especially in India. And our journey actually started with the suicides which were happening in Vidarbha region of Maharashtra, because one of my senior researchers, he comes from that region. In recent past, so that was a journey we started with, and we went through different iterations. We are talking about agriculture uh, 2.0 or Green Revolution 2.0. Within TCS, we had multiple iterations, and we came up with quite a lot of good solutions. But adoption at farmers level is a big challenge, and that is where, in last 5 years, my efforts has been to focus on adoption of whatever the technologies we have developed or similar organizations have developed in same space. Our interventions is making big impact for corporates and clients in agriculture, food processing, and commodity trading, wanting to establish end-to-end value chains. We are applying all technologies in digitization space: GIS, satellite imagery, machine learning, IoT, and analytics. These are all taken, and that is how most of our corporates, all biggies, are making use of, or at least they are moving into that space. When it comes to working with farmers and farmer collectives, directly or through government agencies, it has been, or rather, I would say, it is easily said than done. To solve these issues, we are closely working with many NGOs and government agencies. One such initiative I am involved is with CSAFE, that Center for Sustainable Agriculture and Farm Excellence, an organization formed by under Tata's in commemoration of 150 years of Tata Group. It's a CSR arm of Tata Chemicals. And I'm glad to inform you that while working on paddy and pulses value chain, we have demonstrated doubling. I won't say just doubling, but we have literally tripled their income. But to take all these things with pinch of salt. Unless and until forward linkage is strengthened, all this whole good story which we create can tumble down. And
Sure.
that is where our focus has been. But conversely, it is possible on conservative side. So it was a small pilot which we definitely tripled for some of the farmers. We tripled the income. But if you look at larger scale operations, we are confident that doubling the farmer income should be a stated is like is easy thing to go by, not an issue. Because ultimately, what we are doing for most of the agriculturists or farmers in Indian geography or small holding farmers, it's disguised employment because he is not absorbed somewhere else. He is doing agriculture, and that has to somehow change. Sometimes I feel that this is a opportunity in disguise. To handle a small farm for a farmer is very easy, provided we do skill building, we are able to bring in the technology, and that can really transform the way he is doing the things. And I tell you, that is what we did with farmers having a meager landholding of 2 acres or 5 acres. We have transformed them, and they have learned the tricks. And within couple of seasons, we saw their uh, increasing by almost twofold, literally twofold. And in normal cases, it was 40 to 50%. But this has to sustain. Everything comes and stops at the forward linkage. The moment you hit the market, and if it is glut, every effort is gone down the drains. And I tell you, in recent past, at least 5 to 10 years, I would say most of the governments, maybe state and central, they are all mainly focusing on markets. And of course, I have a colleague here from China, but we are also, India is now taking on the leap from the Chinese success of last couple of decades. And we are also in India trying to approach the global markets with their requirements. And that's the story is slowly but steadily making inroads. Now, the second question you asked was about key success and challenges faced while doing so. Of course, challenges are multifold, but I tell you a recent phenomena of COVID. This COVID thing really brought us together. People were not savvy. People did not know what is Zoom, what is WebEx, what is Google Meet. But in recent 6 months since the pandemic started, I tell you, we have been connecting with at least 20,000 farmers on a daily basis in some region or the other. So most of my field staff are connected with 5 to 10 villages through Google Meet, or there are multiple platforms. But I tell you, in Indian geography, Zoom has been super duper hit. Why?
Indeed.
Because you have to just click the button, click the finger, and you are onto the call. And this is what the transformation is all about. Whatever we tried to do for last decade or so, uh, it is you say no. Necessity is the mother of invention. That's what we see, and COVID has taught us. And we, yes, from IT perspective, as I told you earlier, connecting with corporates and getting the things done and seeing its success is a gone. It means like is a stated thing. But while working with farmer collectives and farmers, it's a Herculean task. And I'm glad to inform that we are connected. Rather, I am making an effort to connect with almost 1,500 farmer producer companies across the country, at least in 7, 8 major states. And it's a journey we have taken since last 7, 8 years. But having said that, and having tried to connect with them, I realized that spreading too far too thin makes no sense. And recently, I have concentrated on Vidarbha, connecting with 160 FPOs, and we are trying to still build, stabilize these FPOs into a full-fledged operational organizations. And I'm glad some of my FPOs are already supplying soybean to ITC and ADM, and few of them are creating their own paddy value chains. And by the way, I'm working on one variety called Telangana Sona or RNR 15048, a beautiful rice variety which is with 51% as glycemic index. And one of my farmer producer company, it's almost in next couple of months, it would be reaching Europe and even Japan. So what the LT overseas, which one of the major basmati organization is doing, which has the major basmati rice market, the same FPO with 2 crores is attempting that. And we made it happen, or we were supporting them. And we are happy that it's not only IT, but when we have to handhold, we have to go all out, and we have to take these farmer producer companies, FPOs, and individual farmers in each
Right.
aspect of value chain and take them to next level. And that is how our journey has been. There are quite a lot learnings beyond IT space per se, but yes, it's satisfaction at the end. And likewise, after Paddy, we have been working on pulses. We did good job with pulses, and we are now starting our journey with oranges, Nagpur Mandarin. It's a big challenge for us because that variety doesn't have good shelf life. So these are the interventions which we are doing. So more than IT, many times I end up doing agriculture things in this space. That is how our journey has been.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Wonderful. No, thanks, Rajesh. Thank you for the insight and extremely impressive stuff, given that stuff, what you're doing as far as backend integration is concerned. I have a small question, and before I move to the next one, and if you can quickly, briefly answer to that, given that stuff, what you're doing across all the states and Vidarbha now, what has been your experience, and if you can share some throw some light as far as which all states are adding to your initiatives in terms of efforts and optimizations. A very brief, very short answer. Which all states in India?
See, we are in Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra,
Mhm.
Assam. We are doing little work in Karnataka and Tamil Nadu. These are the states. Of course, we also plan to move into Jammu and Kashmir uh, and little bit in Rajasthan. But these are the states we are quite. It's like we are
Okay.
present and working with multiple organizations.
Okay, super.
And recent rather impetus by finance minister and especially prime minister to have 10,000 more FPOs is
Mhm.
really taking the agri space by storm. And I tell you, we already have 10,000 FPOs. Only thing is
Great.
that just producing FPOs or establishing FPOs has no meaning. We have to ensure that they survive, they establish, and they move to next level of value chain. And that
Got
is
it.
where the real challenge is. The way we have seen in cooperative sector,
Yeah.
So
Wonderful.
we hope similar progress will happen in FPO space too. Thank you.
Thanks, Rajesh. Thank you for this. I move on to my next panelist, Mr. G. Krishna Kumar from ITC. Mr. Krishna, you there? Hello.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you. Right. So my question to you is given your experience, given that you are ITC, which is right from pen to, as I say in my childhood, it's called the pin to aeroplane, kind of a giant. What has been your opinion in the way forward, and given both in the short term and in the long term, for the agricultural sector in the country? Given that you have a reach across the country, probably in all corners to most of the industry and subsectors, how do you see this industry and entrepreneurs, government, they're all sort of collaborating together and creating a sustainable influx of technology solutions in the farming communities? So your thought, more of a broad ideas, would probably add a lot of value to this whole session.
Yeah. Thanks, Subhash, and good evening to everyone. I think Subhash, I will address your question in three parts. One is to say, today, what is the challenge for Indian farmer and Indian agriculture? Second is, what should be a comprehensive solution, whether you call Green Revolution, to address this challenge? And what is our ITC way of addressing this, and some of our success stories to achieve the multiplying the farmer income? As all of us know, India is not one country, it's like a subcontinent. We are talking about more than 150 million hectares of arable land, 127 climatic zones, and different soil profile, different farmer profiles, mostly a dryland farming. Global warming in the last decade has brought one more variability into already existing variabilities in Indian agriculture. The more than 95% of the farmers are small and market. This brings its own challenges. A small holding farmer is facing a typical challenge both on the production side as well as on the marketing side. This used to be the case when I used to study 40 years back. Studying my university, we used to say Indian agriculture is gamble with monsoon and market. I think even today, I feel it's relevant. Farmer has production challenges like shortage of labor, shortage of infrastructure, climate change impacting one side, and customer is becoming more and more demanding in terms of more stringent quality, custody, and integrity, and he's talking about a complete compliant product. The major problems with the Indian agriculture and farmer in terms of with respect to income is low productivity and what I call that low total factor of productivity. The resource use efficiency is low. This is making the farmer income less. And moreover, the production cannot be in isolation. It has to be market-linked production system. We need to produce what is required by the customer rather than producing what we can produce. There is a need for more alignment. This is where we looked at from the R&D point of view also. From a science of discovery, we need to look at a science of delivery. It is the required diffusion mechanism which is critical to bring the right technology, customize it to meet the multiple requirements of small and marginal land holding of Indian agriculture. That is the challenge. That is what the solution we are looking at. If you really look at throughout the world, there are many R&D solutions and technological solutions for agriculture for every node. The challenges are like in terms of intelligent seed, IoT, precision farming, so and so forth. There's so many things. But the challenge is how you customize to Indian farmer whose affordability is low, who can't afford to take a risk, and the variations are multiple. That is the challenge. How to address this challenge? Is it possible? That is where, if my predecessor speaker said, Shobho said that the Green Revolution too has multiple dimensions that are different. In a nutshell, if I want to say, Green Revolution 1 started with hybrid seed. I think green revolution will be driven by digital technology. It is a sensor, it is a digital technology which will drive and give the required solutions for the vast majority of this Indian community. Because we are talking about today, if you really see the government census says we have 120 million farmers. But how many agri extension workers are there? A lakh and down. That means we are talking about something like more than 1,000 farmers getting connected to 1%, which is far less. And the variations are many. How to address? The technology can certainly give a solution to address this. Because the technology, the digital technology has reached every nook and corner of the country, every village. Now we are talking about, the government is talking about power to every village. So today we have mobile to every village. So the connectivity is there. If we can back it up with the required sensors at the farm, we have multiple data points which can emanate from every farm and every farmer. This data can help you to slice and dice and give the required customary crop advisory. But if you ask me, is it only a vision? No. That's what we could achieve. And the second point in your question is also, is the collaboration is important. It's a must. It's a prerequisite. And public-private partnership involving all the key players of ecosystem have to work together to achieve this. Again, is it a principle or theory? No. It is actually deployed, and we have achieved excellent results in deploying this with win-win outcomes to all the stakeholders in the agri ecosystem, especially the farmer one side, multiplying his income, and the consumer getting the required, desired, the quality product with complete custody of the crop ensured, and in the type of integrity of the product he is looking at. When you come to specific issue of multiplying the farmer income, our approach is that we always work on the 4 elements of the farmer income, which is productivity, quality, cost reduction, and risk mitigation. The productivity we could achieve through customized crop advisory. We have eChopal platform, a digital technology, almost covering 4 million farmers through eChopal in India, in wheat production systems, spices, fruits and vegetables. So multiple crops we are able to see. We could see the excellent results because we are able to provide through continuous crop monitoring the contextual customized crop advisory based on the weather data, the data from the farms. We could do the correct advice to produce the required quality which is in line with the market requirement. This is what we could achieve. We have about 1,000 smart villages where we are able to ensure that there is a complete alignment with the changing climatic conditions and make the farmers to understand the good practices so that his production system is climate resilient. So there are quite a number of examples in wheat production system and in spice production system where we deployed this platform where we could achieve multiplying the farmer income and producing the quality of the product required to meet the US and Europe benchmark standards in terms of quality and productivity where farmer has seen. One good example is in Andhra Pradesh, we are having a public-private partnership with government of Andhra Pradesh covering 1 lakh acres of chili, where the farmer is able to gain 30% of the more income, 10% of more productivity, 8% of increase in his quality, and his direct farmer linkage from doubled in the last 1 year, where normal farmer used to go to the mandi and sell. The farmer able to get the buyer to his village and sell, which reduced his cost of marketing, which further added 10 percentage points more in the income. So all this was possible. A combination of integrated agri-extension mechanism involving digital technology and foot soldiers physically meeting the farmers, and chili production at Kshetra, which is a demonstration plot on the ground. So multi-dimensional integrated approach involving public-private partnership driven by the technological platform eChopal made all the difference.
Wonderful.
In that way, I'm pretty confident that to say that the second green revolution is through digital technology. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Now, that's a very important line, what you concluded with. Indeed, it's going to be digital and digital and digital. That's it. Wonderful. Thank you for this interesting sort of submission. I move to my second question, and after the fourth question, actually, to Mr. Li Feng. Li, am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Wonderful. Your video is not visible. Maybe you can switch out the video if there's an issue.
Okay.
So obviously, given that you're in Beijing and late in the evening, and what sort of I wanted to sort of understand from you is, how do you look at the whole global perspective, and what do you think are the best practices that can be applied to in India as geography in terms of research and development, in terms of innovation in the field and application of technology to maximize the output. So maybe quickly, sort of your thoughts on this.
Okay. I think it could be a very good idea if I start with my organization. It's called the International Federation of Organic Agriculture Movements. It's a grassroots organization, and it's the only umbrella organization for the organic agriculture for global level. And we are starting with the organic producers, and we are starting more from the farmers, but we are having a very high connection with all the scientists. So we see that actually for farmers and scientists, we have really to join together to really make the agriculture to be more sustainable. But it can be in another way. It could be also very tricky. That's I would like to start with one of the pioneer of the organic movement, and he is a British. It's Albert Howard. He bring all his knowledges, the scientific knowledges, and he went to India. He thought, okay, I would like to transfer all my tech knowledge to India and teach the Indian farmers to how to do farming. But he failed. He found the Indian people are doing the agriculture greater than he thought, and much even better organized than he thinks farming should do. And he spent about 30 years in India. He learned what to have been done in the local, and he learned all the traditional knowledge of there. But at the same time, he combined the scientific and also the local wisdom all together. And this is, I think, a very good example, actually. So I think we had our one of the speakers also talk about the global level and also the localism, and this is also very much talked in organic. So when we are thinking, we are transfer the knowledge, to transfer technology. I think it's also need to be very near onto the local conditions, and at the same time, I think many of the people, when we are thinking or valuing agriculture, maybe we are doing it in a not very holistic way, because if we are only looking into the agriculture as a commercial operation, as the industry, then it will be different. But at the same time, agriculture can be people's life. This is so different from industry. Nobody open a factory because it's his life, but farmers, especially smallholders, they do farming because it's also his or her life. And then to the speak of the technology, then it should be different. If you are transfer one of the technology to a farmer, a small farmer, and this is his life, and when you are transfer the technology to the big agriculture company, I think we have to really distinguish these two different groups. And this is I think from the beginning of the agriculture movement, we are all talking about the organic agriculture movement. We are all talking about we have to really respect the farming community, and who is the one really do the operation. I think this is the first thing we have to really address. Who are you taking the technology? Of course, for our, like we said, for the digital technology, it's great. And I meet some of the young people, they find it's very helpful. Like they don't have to do the irrigation every day by going to their field, but they can just on their phone and everything's done. And also, I even see some of the very 60 years old farmer. They also like this technology. They learn how to use all these softwares, and they get a lot of benefits. But at the same time, we also find some of maybe the farmers, they don't really like this. And in Korea, in China, or in Japan, sometimes the governments, they are subsidy a lot if you are trying to apply these digital technologies, especially for the equipment. But in the other parts of the world, in Asia, maybe not enough subsidies for that. Then it comes, as I said also, if you are asking a smallholder to adopt this technology, then you have to also consider the cost for him. And if you are asking a very big agricultural company, then it will be different. It's more easier for them to afford for all these technologies. So this is one of the points for us, and we really also like to see, like, when they are using this technology, like how much they can use. And I think one of our speakers also mentioned that some succeed in China for the agriculture, like a revolution. Also for the past 30 years, we try to feed all ourselves, but at the same time, we also destroyed many of our land. Let's say, like, by overusing of the pesticide, overusing of the artificial fertilizer, and it's very hard to really limit all the practice of each of the farmer, because as they wish, but not really in a way like the scientific way or things. So what I have been observed is if a farmer, he used the pesticide, he doesn't use it according to the level you told them, but he wants to see the pest die just in front of him. And at this level, he has been overusing like 3 times or more. And so this is like, you don't really put a sword to people who cannot really control it. And so then it comes back to I think one of the last point is, when we are really transfer the technology, then the scientists are in very big response to choose what we give to whom and in which condition. And for this one, to me, I really believe that we have to really think carefully, and we have to really, like, for organic farming way, it's more like a friendly and it's more sustainable. And we also, of course, we have machinery, we have the our so-called the first revolution technology, green revolution technologies, but can we really give it to the massive big population to use them? And maybe they can succeed in the marketing sometimes. Like we have, I don't know if you may know that there's one of the let's say county in China. They are very much famous in producing the vegetables. They use high inputs, very much like they use artificial fertilizers, pesticides. They sell their vegetables all around China. They make a lot of money, but if you go to this township and you see the pollutions are all over there, and they even developed some of the technology, so-called in Chinese we call it a guest soil. It means they destroy their own soil, they remove it, they put some new soil here, and they start their like very poor practice again. So I think in here the scientists are in very big response to choose the right technology for the right people. Like for the smallholders, maybe we have to really ask to help them to use their like local resources to I think decrease their inputs in the agricultural production. Like I think in India, my friends in India, they told me many of the numbers, like for the conventional farmers, they have been like used too much for the costs, and they cannot even pay back for the loan after the production, and some of them they go suicide.
Sorry, I'm sorry. I'm just going to, because we still have to take one more question. We're running
okay.
short time. Sorry about this.
Okay. Then I just make a finish. I think the scientists really have to choose the right way of the farming, and to give the right way, give to a right community. And in here, it's very important for the scientist group, and then for the global networking is also for the scientists to exchange, really to get all the networking and also to see different conditions. I think for our platform is we really organizing the scientist groups also together to exchange like in a very high tends to know like what's happening and in a global wise, and to really go, but we also go very deep into farmers community to really transfer the technology. Okay. Wonderful. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks, Ling. Thanks. Sorry for this, because we're just running short of time. Yeah. And then yes, we'll probably take the last question before we sort of end the session. So last but not the list in the line is we have Ajay Mutreja. Ajay, you there?
Very much so.
Wonderful. Thanks for all the patience. So my question to you is, and we'll probably take about 7 or 8 odd minutes on this, is you've been there, you've done that, you've seen this and done that. So my question is, despite a large agriculture network, there's a sort of huge gap in terms of addressing those needs in the Indian agriculture sector, be it in terms of cost, be it in terms of deployment, productivity, water scarcity, and the list can go on and on. So how can India and other developing countries do better in bridging this gap? That's my question to you.
Thank you, Subhash. Let me take you back with my experience in the 80s when I was responsible to bring technologies from both Western world and Eastern world. I used to travel frequently to a number of countries to look at basic technologies for agriculture, food processing, whether it is mushroom cultivation, whether it's pineapple concentrate, whether it is looking at value add packaging for food processing, and even working with various seed companies, including Pioneer Hybrid Seed Company from US. What I learned was that all those technology transfer will work only if we adapt them, what I call glocalize them. So even today, the biggest challenge is we know that science has to solve problems, technology has to transform what is happening, and innovation has to make an impact. So if we look at these three words, is whatever research done in our country, is it really making big social impact? While I heard Shubhu talk about the great work that his organization and Deshpande is doing, I know ITC has done a great work in this country, but we need to look at some frugal solutions with local communities so that they can absorb. Unless the communities know how to absorb, unless they get involved in creating those solutions, having traveled in the last 4 years to various rural parts of the country, including in Northeast India, working with agroeconomies, I have realized that people are still living probably with 50-year-old technologies, and someone who has invented and learned how to do things a little better in the state of Odisha has not been transformed across to West Bengal or across to the Northeast India. So how can technology innovations first have to start its ground in the rural areas? We need to have the capacity in the communities to absorb those innovations. A great work has been done by a number of programs led by Deshpande Foundation that he talked about. We have to go and talk to the real world and develop innovations that are really needed. Majority of our agriculture research institutes, I'm sorry to say, they don't even physically go as a barefoot to the villages to learn what are the real problems. So if you don't ask your real society or the problem for whom you're doing innovation, maybe you're going to continue to waste money. India needs a lot of R&D from its application perspective, which is in India, rather than innovation perspective. We can go around the world, get the best technologies like we have got from Israel for irrigation, whether it is food processing technologies, but we need to adapt them, we need to localize them, we need to localize those best practices. And right now, I think one of the biggest problem in our country is we are trying our best to make farmers learn what is best in other parts of the world rather than helping those marginal farmers, which have been talked by every speaker in India. We need more micro innovations in agriculture as a whole. And to increase the farmers' income, we need R&D focused more on local processes, incrementally and holistically, rather than trying to attempt and change them drastically. Nobody likes change, so if you try and push them, they won't work. While we need to focus on all the areas of productivity improvement in the farm, we need to look at decreasing post-harvest losses. We need to decrease the inefficiencies, improve the supply chains, need to look at transparency, safe food, food tracing, but we also need to focus on what India has already started doing, what I call market-driven ecosystem for whatever we produce, which will help farmers to get less exploited. And we have to now take a step back and look at what was the most successful part of Green Revolution 1.0 and what was the most successful part of what was called White Revolution or dairy cooperative set up by Dr. Kurian. And I believe the success story of dairy cooperation of Dr. Kurian was a bigger success than what, I'm sorry to say, what Mr. M.S. Swaminathan did in Green Revolution 1.0. So instead of trying to live in the glory of Green Revolution 1.0, we need to now look at what is required. What we required is the true world of 2020. We need to look at GRIN instead of green. GRIN is G-R-I-N. G stands for genomics, R stands for robotics, I stands for informatics, and N stands for nanotechnology. A part of this was talked by the speaker from TCS, Rajesh Urkudu, and there are others who spoke about it too. So let's talk about that is one. And second, we need agri-market revolution. We need to also focus on skill development. We need to focus on agriculture professionals to become hands-on. We need to make sure that all our PhDs who are doing research in India actually go to the market and go to the field and understand what research they are doing is relevant for what they are doing, or are they just copy paste something that has been done in the rest of the world. And every successful PhD thesis that has been written in this country should be translated into at least 22 languages, because people will then be able to apply that. So let's look at what is really required is application perspective in India for that R&D rather than disruptive innovation perspective. We need to look at what was spoken by and has been successfully done by Mahindra Group in what is called democratization of the entire agriculture innovations for the marginal farmer. So I think there are a number of things I can talk about from my experience. I mean, way back when I was looking at the best technologies for food processing in this country to be brought, I don't know how many of you know, but before Perfetti Van Mille, it used to be called Perfetti Company, and I brought them into this country in mid-90s. Before they came to this country, the quality of candies and toffees in this country was pathetic. So we said we'll bring the best technology, but make it frugal and affordable at 1 paisa per coin and per child for every candy. And it was the 1995 technology which we brought, and then they managed to get the market share. Same for whether it is packaging, whether it is research oriented activities for field. There is a lot we can do, and there is a need to what was also spoken by previous speakers. There's a need to what I believe in cross border within India. The work done by people in Andhra is not even adapted by people in Northeast India. There's a need to have quick transformation of learnings, best practices, we may call them frugal innovations, across the states, across the regions, across the districts. And one of the suggestions that I have is we have more than 15,000 colleges around the country where engineering students and even non-engineering students are not even working with the local district authorities. They should work with the district authorities and solve the problems of the local people. So a lot can be done through cross-border, within the country, innovation sharing, and a lot can also be done by learning from the best practices rather than just depending on imports. There's no problem for us to do a quick jump from what we were doing in 1980s and 90s to now 2021.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you, Ajay. Thanks to each one of you. And we've got 7 more minutes. And before we end this session, I have a couple of quick questions. But just to sum it up, what we heard in this session from Shubho is more of back-end integrations, how we collaboratively work with the states. What we heard from TCS and Rajesh rather, how is Igstc working very closely with the states and creating successful models. What we heard from Mr. Krishna was how there's an open innovation happening when corporates are working closely with entrepreneurs as well as governments and taking that results to the betterment of the agriculture sector. What we heard from Li Peng was how global companies are actively pursuing and investing knowledge, time, and effort, apart from real-time investments in creating R&D. And obviously, from last but not the least, from Ajay, was how knowledge sharing is very important, and as well as very important to actually go to market and learn rather than running within the 4 confinements of schools and colleges and universities. I think each one of you really made some very important observations. Now we've got exactly 6 minutes to go before we end the session, and I have a quick sort of hot seat in a way to ask each one of you. If I have to request you to describe 2 action points or 2 words which you think should be taken forward as a part of this, for development of agriculture in this country, what would be? 2 words or 2 sentences, just very quick, no description, nothing. I start with Shubho.
So my 2 sentences are: we are a living lab working with 120,000 farmers, and we have lots of people on the ground, thousands of folks in our outreach community. So please reach out to us, bring your ideas,
Yeah.
and let's take them to fruition. That would be my 2 sentences.
Wonderful. Rajesh?
Skill development through IT intervention.
Awesome.
a long way in increasing productivity. And of course, while we do that, we also need to look out for markets, because market will drive everything. Marketing is what is missing link, and that is where all of us have to scratch our brains, and global markets we should open up. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Krishna?
Market linked production system through integrated crop agri extension model involving digital technology and public private partnership.
Great. Li Peng? 2 words, 2 sentences.
He's not there.
Okay. Ajay, yours?
Mine is same, agri market revolution 1.0 to be created now, and GRIN, genomics, robotics, information, and nanotechnology to be applied, with a focus on creating farmers with local solutions.
Wonderful. Wonderful. I think that's a huge amount of knowledge we collected, and I just hope they are getting recorded and going to be sort of reviewed for, sort of distributed for others to watch and get some knowledge. I guess that's where we sort of end this session. Thanks to each one of you. I really mean it, taking the time out and spending about an hour and sharing your information, your thoughts, your knowledge. This can be a huge point of reference for anyone who wants to know a little more about what's happening in India and the agri-tech sector. So thanks once for each one of you once again, and I guess let's keep in touch and have a good day in whichever part of the world you are in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Have a
Thank you
great
so
day.
much.
All the best.
Thank you. Thank you.
Take care. All the
Thank
best.
you. Bye.
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 With Igstc from its inception, and I basically hold a PhD degree in chemistry from Indian Institute of Technology Madras long back 1993, and then I have been in different topics of research, malaria vaccine development, biophysical chemistry, etc., for almost 15 years before moving on to administrative science administration and science funding. And my first job was in Wellcome Trust DBT India Alliance as a grants manager. And with that experience, I moved on to the newly set up Indo-German Science and Technology Center. And I'm happy to be here and to represent IGSTC at this platform. Thank you.
Great, ma'am. Great. Thank you. Professor Rajeev Shah, please. Quickly.
Thank you very much. Good evening from Tokyo. My name is Rajeev Shah. I'm a professor in Keio University. Of course, I was born in India, but now living more than half of my life in Japan. My main work on this, especially on this agrotech, is more on the climate change issues and try to see that which type of appropriate technologies are required for agriculture sector broadly in the Asian region. And I'm also what we call the CLA, which is the coordinating lead authors for the IPCC's current assessment report. Very nice meeting you all. Thank you.
Wonderful, sir. Mr. Tempest, please. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
If you, we have not gone live as yet. Great. So we have not gone live as yet.
Oh, okay.
We have not gone live as yet, Mr. Tempest.
So, no, in fact, Rajesh, in fact, we've just gone live. So I would request you to kindly go ahead and let me introduce Mr. Rajesh Ranjan. He's going to be the session lead for today and is the CEO of NAV Venture. Rajesh Ranjan has had a very prolific profile till now. He heads the NAV Venture, NABARD-backed fund, which focuses on early to mid-stage startups in agri-tech, food tech, agri, rural, fund tech, rural health tech, and rural edtech domain. Under his leadership, NAV Ventures has invested in 4 startups: Jai Kishan, Unnati, Satyukt, and Krishi Tantra. He has successfully managed money for Q Investments, a US-based multi-strategy hedge fund, IDFC Proprietary Equity Investments, and Cal Alpha Fund. an early stage fund, which is again focused on food and agriculture investment. By his degree, he's an MBA from IIM Kolkata and BA Honours in Economics from St. Stephen's College. So I really welcome you, Rajeshji, and we really thank you. We are obliged that you have taken, going to lead this session. And I also take this opportunity to welcome other panelists. Over to you, Rajeshji, so we can take it forward from here.
Thank you, Abhay. Appreciate. Thank you for the kind words and kind introduction. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Hello, shalom, konnichiwa, and a very warm welcome to all of you for this session on technology creating new business opportunities in the Agri-Tech section of the Global R&D Summit, organized by the Department of Science and Technology and Wiki. This evening is a special one, as we have assembled for you a stellar cast of panelists to discuss Agri-Tech business opportunities, and with a special focus on the topic of combining the basic sciences and technology in sectors like agriculture have a huge multiplier effect potential. How have we realized or achieved its true potential yet? What more needs to be done to bring food security or nutrition security for all? So a quick round of introduction with the panelists. My first panelist is Mr. Israel Tempest. Mr. Tempest is the CEO and co-founder of C-Tree, a startup building the world's first intelligence network for trees and permanent crops. Then my second panelist today is Professor Rajeev Shah. He's a Japanese national of Indian origin. Rajeev Shah ji is the professor in Graduate School of Media and Governance in Keio University's Shonan Fujisawa campus in Japan. And my third panelist today is Ms. Nikita Nadkarni. Nikita leads the Agri-Tech portfolio at Social Alpha and also oversees the flagship India Agri-Tech incubation network supported by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and Tata Trusts. Then I have Mr. Girish Kanul. He is a consultant and he's part of Manna Irrigation and Rivulis Irrigation India Private Limited, Israel. He has 27 years of experience in Indian agriculture in various fields like advanced micro irrigation systems, lift irrigation systems, water soluble fertilizers, and Manna irrigation in particular uses remote sensing technology along with advanced agronomy knowledge to provide customized daily irrigation recommendations to individual growers who have holdings as small as 1 hectare. And I'm joined by Dr. P.V. Lalita. She's a senior scientific officer at the Indo-German Science and Technology Center. It's a setup between Government of India through DST and Government of Germany through BMBF for promoting Indo-German collaborations and programs. Now, coming back to the topic at hand, which is combining the basic sciences and technology in sectors like agriculture, which have a huge multiplier effect potential. So a quick overview I would like to give in terms of where we are in terms of agri-tech and how agri-tech is in a nascent stage, but is the future of Indian agriculture. So currently, it is expected that from a current population level of 1.37 billion, India would have a massive population jump to 1.64 billion by 2050. And along with the rise in population, the food demands, including quality food demands, food safety demands would jump up massively. And this puts a lot of pressure on the Indian agri-food ecosystem. Because in order to meet these increased needs of food, the food has to be generated using less energy, less agrochemicals, while lowering levels of greenhouse gases and coping with climate change as well. So while we see that agri-tech currently is in a very nascent stage, it's just the journey of agri-tech in India has started in 2012, right? And a very small amount of investments have gone into agri-tech, core agri-tech that is. The agri-tech startups have taken a massive lead in terms of solving some of the persistent problems plaguing Indian agriculture, which put a question mark over the sustainability of agriculture. Things like farmland degradation, low crop yields, overuse of agrochemicals, labor shortage, distribution inefficiencies, food safety, food traceability, and so on. So, I believe that the government has been very supportive, the private sector has been very supportive, the entrepreneurs have come up and have all, as a team, worked together to improve the agri-food ecosystem in India. However, a lot needs to be done in terms of more support from various state governments, Government of India, R&D institutions, Department of Science and Technology, incubators, accelerators, and more importantly, from the venture capital funds. So, without much ado, I would like to invite Mr. Israel Tempest to kind of share his views on the topic. You're not audible. I think you're on mute, Mr. Tempest.
Can you hear me? Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. It's an honor to participate in this event. A few words about C-Tree. We are a 3.5-year-old startup that specializes in trees, meaning we create an intelligence package for growers of trees at the single tree level, meaning we measure every single tree, a large set of parameters such as the health, the biomass, the chlorophyll status, water stress, many indexes, and also an agronomic, like an agronomist would stand by a tree and analyze it. We do the same, but we do it by using different sensing capabilities, mainly aerial drones, not only mainly by drones, multispectral, RGB type, plus also ground vehicles that we have that we utilize. All of this combined together as a campaign to bring all of the data and analyze it, package it for the growers to enable them now to really manage down to the single tree level. Okay. Basically, what we're doing is we're creating a digital farm, a tree-centric digital platform of the farm, enabling the farmer to measure and see the performance of every single component, every production unit that they have. That's how we see the trees, as specific production units, moving them from the analog world to the digital world, and being able to measure it in an affordable way. And what this enables us is, first of all, we use the best technology that we can find to detect diseases as early as possible, such as greening in citrus, terrible disease. We're able to locate that from the air. And up till now, it used to be only ground scouting to be able to do that, but we also measure the irrigation status, water stress issues, nutrition, other diseases, the sizes of the trees. We measure the sizes of all of them, looking for sunlight exposure issues, optimizing the spraying amounts that are needed. All of this in one package. This is what we do, and we believe in this approach is essential to the optimization, the farming efficiency. Exactly as you said in your opening words, how do we enable the farmers to make the right decisions and use the tools that technology brings today and will bring tomorrow? You need to have this digital platform plus all of these features to be able to make good decisions. I didn't mention this, but the analysis is a combination of machine learning and human human interface, training, constantly learning and getting it better as we go along, and also IoT sensors that are utilized usually by the farmers. All of this combined in one integrated platform. That's what we believe in. We think that this is essential in moving forward to the next phase.
You're on mute, Rajesh.
You're mute.
Sorry, absolutely. So thank you, Mr. Tempest. I would now like to invite Ms. Nikita Nadkarni to share her views on the problems plaguing agriculture and how agri-tech can resolve all these issues.
Sure, Rajesh, thanks. Let me start off by quoting some facts about Indian agriculture, which I'm sure most of us here are already aware of. To begin with, the agriculture and allied sector employs close to 50% of India's workforce, but only contributes to about 16% of the GDP. 75% of farmers are small and marginal, that is, they own land less than 2 hectares. 40% of the food that we actually produce is either spoiled or wasted before it actually reaches the consumers. The agriculture sector contributes to almost 16.2% of the total greenhouse gas emissions in India. At the same time, climate change has caused productivity losses of anywhere between 4% to 18% in case of rice, wheat, and maize. Also, agriculture households earn only something up to 6,426 per month, of which only 50% is actually attributed to cultivation. Essentially, the farmer, who is at the crux of the agriculture value chain, captures very limited value as compared to the risk that he undertakes. Fragmented land holdings, absence of irrigation, low productivity, and a broken agri-food value chain all make agriculture unviable for a large number of farmers, especially the small and marginal farmers. The paradox is that India actually has a thriving number of legacy institutions in agriculture research. We have a dynamic private sector and a thriving NGO sector, and successive governments have always been very focused on agricultural reforms. Yet, the kind of breakthrough innovations and technologies that we saw during the first wave of the Green Revolution have been slow on the uptake and limited in terms of adoption by farmers, and especially small and marginal farmers. I recently read a report which quoted that the Indian agri-tech sector has the potential to reach some $24.1 billion economy over the next 5 years, but we're currently operating at some 204 million, which is just about 1% of the potential. Why is that happening? So if you look at the agri and allied value chain, there are several different segments. Some segments are extremely underpenetrated, both by the agri-corporates as well as the agri-tech startups. In fact, if you analyze where the 500 plus agri-tech startups actually operate, there's a strong disparity in the number of startups that operate on the pre-harvest side versus the post-harvest side versus the market linkage side. In fact, when it comes to the livestock and sort of fisheries value chain, there are hardly a handful of startups operating in that space. Consequently, even agri-tech investors in India have had a strong preference for IoT, e-commerce, and farm-to-fork models as compared to asset-heavy models such as small farm mechanization, farm infrastructure, decentralized storage and processing. Even precision farming, for that matter, has seen limited investments. Also, if you analyze the reach of most of the agri-corporates and agri-tech startups, most of them end up working with the large and the medium-sized farmers, much less with the small and marginal farmers. Also because it's sort of economically, it may not always fit. If startups are able to sort of crack an innovative model, say working in a collectivized approach, working with farmer producer organizations in innovative ways such that the unit economics fit, I think it's a huge market right there, eagerly waiting to be tapped. The basic premise for us at Social Alpha is that science and technology innovations and entrepreneurship have a huge potential to solve complex social, economic, and environmental challenges. with many unexplored areas, farm policy reforms, improved mobile phone connectivity and smartphone penetration, financial inclusion, which is constantly improving, and of course, the increased investor activity. We certainly believe that these are exciting times for the agri-tech and allied space. And I see great potential for many new innovative agri-tech startups to create deep, irreversible impact.
Great. Great. Thank you. Very enlightening views. Thank you, Nikita ji. I would like to request now Professor Rajeev Shah to throw more light on the topic at hand.
Thank you very much, and namaste. Thank you very much for inviting me. Let me provide a little bit of different perspective. You know that when you talk about the agriculture, it's an interface. It has always been the interface between science, technology, business, and more importantly, the people. Some of you who work in the development business may know the term human security, which was coined back in 2000 in the UN Millennium Summit. Professor Amartya Sen and the Japanese humanitarian legend Ogata Sadako, they were chairing that Human Security Commission. And in one of their preliminary report, they mentioned it very strongly that the core of human security is rooted in a robust agriculture system, which has a very delicate balance of economy, ecology, and society. So I think we have seen that when we have advancement of science and technology, we have different types of demand-driven technology. For example, in Japan, we extensively use robotics and drones in agriculture sector because the human resources are very, very less in that particular sector. Similarly, sensor-based smart technologies are also used extensively in the area to optimize the water usage. In many developing countries, especially, of course, India is a classic example of that, where we need this farm-to-home connectivity, we have more internet-based agribusiness opportunities. In the urban area, we see where there are lack of spaces, we have the vertical agriculture systems. There are lots of innovations which have done on the vertical agriculture. For last 3 years, we are working with some of the urban designers and architects in Tokyo that how this whole concept of urban agriculture and the urban agricultural technology can be integrated into the design of when you actually design that particular building to provide some sort of basic spaces. So there are many this type of classic example of science, technology, business interconnectedness. But what I see is, and what I would like to pitch mainly here, that we always have this fragmentation of technologies. So one technology is used for one purpose, another is for another purpose. The interconnectedness of the technologies are very, very important. I just give you one example. For that, some sort of broader policy perspective is very important. Japan has started this concept of Society 5.0 back in 2017. Now, why Society 5.0? It's very similar to Industry 4.0 in Europe, but it's more the human-centric, technology-driven society. And why 5.0? We know that 1.0 was the hunting age, 2.0 was the agriculture, 3.0 was the industry, 4.0 is the current information age. But where we possibly need to go in future, where this interconnectedness of different technologies are the key thing. And there has been huge investment for Society 5.0, and agriculture is one of the key pillars, along with other pillars like education, health, disaster preparedness, and so on. So my main pitch would be this interconnectedness of technologies, and there the science, technology, innovation policy, the country's overall policy is a very, very important thing. And I strongly hope and believe that now that India is now preparing the next phase of the STI policy, this whole agro-business or the whole agri-tech should be properly integrated in that larger frame. So that's my main pitch. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Very, very enlightening, very insightful. And now I would request Mr. Girish Kanoli to give his views on the topic.
So as I think Mr. Ranjan and Mr. Rajeev Shah has said, one of the things, yes, definitely, if you talk of Indian agriculture, definitely a lot of technology has come. I think we have done good progress in terms of achieving yield potentials in horticulture crops, even food crops. I don't think food security is kind of an issue. But as Rajesh you have said, the basic issue in Indian agriculture is now the environmental issues. I mean, the water is one of the biggest issues, right? And when we talk of my sector, I mean, water use efficiency is very important. What we call water use efficiency is using, less amount of water to produce more, more produce. And of course, in terms, it will also reduce the fertilizer usage and chemicals. So one of the problems now in India is, the water use efficiency. I mean, India has made a large progress in terms of, advanced irrigation technologies like micro irrigation. We now have a micro irrigation in more than 6 million hectares, where farmers are using, drip irrigation, the sprinkler, and all that. The biggest issue with the farmers is though they have this advanced technology to apply the irrigation water, but they don't know, we call it precision agriculture, how much water to be given to the plants, what is the quantity and how frequently we have to do that. Though people are talking sensors, soil sensors and all that, but with the Indian holdings of 1.5 hectare and the farmer profile very, in terms of knowledge and using technology, they need some kind of, simple tools to use the, irrigation quantity. So in terms, if we have that kind of a thing without sensors, any hardware, to have the irrigation quantity and use in their, language, so water use efficiency can be done. I think that is the biggest issue. The recent example, what we handled is actually we are providing remote sensing and artificial intelligence, and of course, advanced agronomical model. So we are actually covering 25 crops for a 1 hectare farm. So we use satellite images, and the farmer gets on his mobile application in his own language irrigation recommendation. So I think water use efficiency is the biggest challenge. If the farmers applies in the right quantity, I think the fertilizer usage can go down, and ultimately, it will go to the environmental sustainability. So I could add more points on that in the future discussion.
Thank you, sir. This is very helpful and very pertinent points which you have raised regarding water use efficiency. Mrs. Nair, please, would like to know your views, ma'am, on the topic. You're on mute, ma'am. If you can unmute yourself.
I'm sorry about it.
No.
Yes. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, or to some, good morning. And thanks to the organizers for giving me this opportunity to introduce my organization, Igstc, to the participants or viewers of this event. An Indo-German Science and Technology Center is a flagship initiative of Government of India and Government of Germany to promote research partnership of industrial relevance on a PPP mode, connecting academia and industry from both the countries for the benefit of socio-economic benefits of both these countries. And in this platform, I feel I am an old person, but it would be indeed interesting to the viewers to get to know what IGSTC do. And it is to be noted at this point that IGSTC is the only one and the first such center which is formed by German government outside Germany. The aims and objectives of IGSTC can be classified as to facilitate and catalyze Indo-German R&D networking to advance industrial research partnerships, create platform for cross-fertilization of ideas, develop knowledge networks for industrial competitiveness, establish joint knowledge pools to address challenges, and serve as a nerve center to promote technology partnership. Operational since 2011, our core mandate is to support 2+2 projects of industrial relevance. Since its inception, IGSTC had launched 10 2+2 grant calls for proposals in various topics of mutual interest, depending on the national priorities of both India and Germany. And functioning on PPP model, with the industry contributing approximately 25% of the total project cost. As I mentioned, the priority areas for IGSTC integrating with the national missions have been advanced manufacturing, embedded systems and ICT, sustainable energy environment, biotechnology, bioeconomy, biomedical technology, water and wastewater technologies, and smart cities where water management, sanitation, energy efficiency, waste to wealth technologies have been used. Over the past 10 years, IGSTC have funded 40 2+2 joint projects on various topics. And IGSTC have been lucky to have on board Indian industries such as Tata Group of Industries, TS, Tata Steel, TRDCC, and Thermax, Bharat Forge, then Mahindra, New Zealand Seeds, Gift City, Tweak, etc. Along with German industries, again, Actec, Innovations, GmbH, Papier Fabrics, Biflow Systems, Oculus, Sonnen, Saralon, Kuka, and Daimler. Along with institutions such as premier institutions, IITs, there were several IITs participated, then Indian Institute of Science, universities such as Hyderabad University, Delhi University, and then CNS Bangalore, All India Institute of Medical Science, ICGEB, CRISAT, Narayana Nethralaya, several CSIR laboratories, ICT, ISER, etc. Along with the German industry institutes, technical universities, several technical universities, then several Fraunhofer institutions, Helmholtz institutes, then RWTH, Aachen, BAM, etc., to name a few. These projects have specific targets in terms of time, cost, scientific and technological achievements, and deliverables. Since its inception, though agri-tech has never been our core topic, but IGSTC supported from its first call 3 projects which were very relevant to agri-tech and agriculture. And Igstc, to name these 3, the partners were Igstc, BenchBio, Gothe University, Genex Pro, IHBT, CSIR Laboratory, Krishidhan, IBG2, ICGEB, then New Zealand Seeds, IPK, SUR, GmbH, Germany.
Sure, ma'am. Great.
Yes.
Thank you. Now, coming back to the larger topic of conventional agriculture facing a lot of issues, challenges, and how basic sciences can be applied to kind of make a difference. So I would like to put on a slide which kind of captures the areas within the agri ecosystem, which is so this is a market map on agri-tech, right? So you see, so this is kind of this graphic captures the entire agri-tech ecosystem or agriculture ecosystem, not touching upon the food tech ecosystem. So let's look at those segments like agri inputs, where on the sciences side, life sciences, plant sciences have been applied. On the genomics side, animal genetics side, however, a lot needs to be done in India in terms of framing regulations on the biotech side, agri-biotech and livestock biotech side. You have genetic seeds, bio-agri inputs. Imagery is going to emerge as a big area, and digital e-commerce of inputs. Then coming to the precision agriculture side, we have farming as a service, farm monitoring, farm ERP, novel farming. Now, increasingly, players are looking at farm infra, which includes indoor agri and vertical farming, farm data analytics, and so on. And also, there is a move towards climate resilient agriculture, which a lot of startups have started looking at. And then you have farm mechanization. A lot needs to be done. The sector is not as yet profitable because pricing mechanisms are not very clear. and no ability to pay for such services is also not clear at this point in time. Quality assessment has made good strides. However, they have not been able to scale up, despite valuations jumping up. But players on the ground have faced scale-up challenges. And then we have smart logistics and storage, app-based logistics, smart warehousing, and this still requires a lot of investments. Then we have digital marketplace and trading, which kind of makes it easy for farmers to kind of sell their produce online. Initiatives like government's ENAM initiative is a welcome move in this regard. And at the fag end of the value chain or ecosystem is the B2B, B2C or D2C agri-produce distribution, wherein players like Lycius, Country Delight, Ninja Cart, or Fresh to Home have raised a lot of capital, and that business or that segment is scaling up pretty rapidly. The point that I wanted to make with this graphic was that, despite at both ends, it's a lopsided barbell at this point in time, the agri-tech space. In the sense, the front-end side, facing consumer, has raised a lot of capital, is scaling up rapidly. And on the input side, primarily the digital platforms which are selling agri-inputs have raised a lot of money and hope to have a better future. But the players in between, the segments in between, precision ag, farm mechanization, quality assessment, and to some extent logistic and warehouse, have not been able to kind of raise money, right? And that's where our disconnect is, that going forward, more stress needs to be given on the core agri-tech, so to say. And with that, I would like to move into the Q&A section now of the discussion. And I would like to request again, Mr. Tempest, that the first question to you is that low adoption of advanced technologies and smart farming at the last mile is a major barrier to sectoral advancements, especially in countries like India. How do you ensure faster adoption of advanced technologies at the grassroots level? Yes. You're not audible. Yeah. I think we are not really. We are missing out. Or in the interim, I will move to Professor Rajeev Shah. I'll come back to you, Mr. Tempest. I will move to Professor Rajeev Shah. The question for you, sir, is that smart farming is the future of agriculture, with digital technologies enabling efficient and resource-saving farming. We are all aware about the adverse impact of agriculture on climate change. Would bringing in technologies and smart farming into the sector, into the agri sector, be enough to reverse the negative impact of the environment? And is this sustainable in the long run? What is the way forward to ensure that the transformation and advancement in the sector is in line with the sustainable development goals? Professor Rajeev Shah.
Thank you very much. I think it's a very pertinent question, and you have coined two very important terms. One is climate change, and another one is the SDG, Sustainable Development Goal. And all of us, we are aware and getting increasingly aware also that the SDGs, the core SDG like 1, 2, 3, which is related to hunger, poverty, and human health, are very much rooted with the agriculture sector. Also in our recent IPCC assessment, the agriculture sector will be possibly one of the hardest hit sector in the future. I mean, that's what the projection talks about, especially in broadly actually in Asia. So there are like whether it is the dry area where the water quantity fluctuation, or whether it is in the coastal area where the water quality in terms of the salinity poses a major problem. So I would like to possibly address this on two, I have possibly two specific points here. One is that I think that there needs to be a balance between the conventional technology and the new and disruptive technology to address these issues. We surely need the salinity-resistant crop variety, for example, for the coastal agriculture. Or we need the low-water, high-yield crop, which is linked to more the conventional agriculture science. So we definitely need that. Simultaneously, we also need, as I mentioned in my earlier comment, that the interlinked disruptive technologies. And in recent days, I've been very interested in this idea of the IOP, which is the Internet of Plant, which is very similar to the IoT idea, but more on the plant part. But it still is in a very early stage of research and development, where you have these nanosensors, which can actually get lots of data related to whether it is the environmental, chemical, climatic factor, or addressing the health related or the growth of the plant, or increasing the crop quality and the production. So we need possibly this balanced thing. So that's my first part. And the second thing is that, like, where we are bringing that technology. So we need the technology for masses, for the people, especially the country like India. Our colleague Nikita ji gave some very interesting sort of data that why this sector is very, very important. So I think that how we bring this technology to the masses, that's very important, because again, the climate change will be affecting the most is the poor and the vulnerable people. And we still have there a big digital divide. So how we can actually bridge the digital divide, bringing more innovation to the people. I think these 2 points I would like to highlight. One is the balance between the conventional and the disruptive technology, and bringing technology more closer to the people. So of course, these two won't help address all the points, but at least I will like to see some more interventions on that. Thank you very much.
Great, sir. Thank you. And very, very deep insights there in your talk. Now, I would like to request Mr. Talpaz again. I hope the audio issues have been resolved. The slight change in question. The question for you is, precision ag is the need of the hour to solve multiple challenges in the agriculture ecosystem. How is seed tree actually helping improve the yields of farmers in a sustainable manner? And also your thoughts on the potential of precision ag to make a difference in the global agriculture. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. It's loud and clear.
Yes. Okay, great. So, simply put, I think that precision agriculture can really make the big change by taking all of the complexities that we're talking about, okay, and we're talking about a lot of technologies, a lot of new capabilities. It has to be taken together, integrated together to one system, put in a easy to understand and quick to understand, friendly used language, localized on one system. We need to be able to take all of these capabilities, and there are many, many, and put them together and make them good enough and simple to use for the farmers. Up till today, and I think that this is the main reason for low adoption by farmers all over the world, not only in India. Also think that the low adoption is that the precision agriculture wasn't good enough. It wasn't complete enough, it wasn't accurate enough, it wasn't consistent enough. I think that now we have the capabilities, these new capabilities that are coming in with machine learning and with cloud computing and with all of these capabilities coming in, we are able now to make it good enough for the farmers. We're packaging it together so that they can use it. And it's becoming cheaper because the sensing costs are becoming cheaper. Drones are cheaper, they cover more area, cameras are cheaper, cloud computing cheaper. All of this can make it affordable. Another very important component is working with local teams. We really believe that local teams that we partner with that fly the drones, we supply them with the drones, they fly the drones, they fly them, they collect the data. It makes it more efficient, it makes it cheaper, and it's more, we can spread it out even to the lower income farmers. I think that is a way to scale up and to create better usage all over the world. I think that the precision agriculture is really the enabler for all of the 4.0 revolution. Okay, you have now the capability to do smart irrigation, very precise, variable rate spraying of crop protection, detecting the alpha plants and the best producing areas. All of these are enabled by precision agriculture, and we believe that this will enable producing much more food per each plant. And I think that is that's the big message.
Certainly. Great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Tempest. I think Mr. Doron Shalom has joined the discussion. Mr. Shalom, if I can request you to keep your video on so that I can make a quick introduction. Mr. Shalom, can you hear me? Okay. So in the interim, I would move on to another question, and that is addressed to Mr. Girish Kanul. So, sir, Israel is a world leader in agriculture, often referred to as a miracle in agriculture, where science and technology have played a crucial role in converting mostly desert land into a sustainable and robust agriculture sector, making Israel self-sufficient and also a key exporter of agricultural produce. So Israel is a key partner of India in the agriculture sector. So if you can share your experience of how Israeli technology has been used in the Indian context, what is the success that you have seen, and what are the key roadblocks on the path of sustainable agriculture sector in India? Mr. Kanol?
Yeah. I think Israel technology has been used in India for last 25 years, I think. And of course, I also have a there right from the start. So I think the technology is used very widely. I think one of the most important area where the Israeli technology is used is, I think, irrigation. That's advanced irrigation technologies, and with the micro irrigation, drip irrigation, that's the biggest contribution of, I think, Israel to the Indian agriculture. And as I said, more than 6 million hectares have been now used in India. The other important technology used in agriculture, again, I'm talking into the farm production, is an automation. And automation is giving precision amount of irrigation. So using the valves and the controllers, I think that's the one of the good technology which is brought into the Indian agriculture by Israeli. A lot of projects happen into the community irrigation. Basically, it takes water in a prescribed quantity, and large blocks can be irrigated with the planning. The second is protected cultivation. That means growing crops in the greenhouse condition. So I think a lot of Israeli technologies are used in terms of the films used for the greenhouses structures, and the plants. So a good progress. Lot of things. I'm not talking of another sectors in Israeli agriculture, dairy, and in the poultry. So a lot of things has been done. So the basic contribution is, again, as I said, the water application efficiency is there. The roadblocks to the Indian, and next I will talk about my company, which I said, this is a new thing which you are bringing in. The next step to the advanced irrigation technology is going to apply the irrigation water by bringing remote sensing. The biggest roadblock we see is the, as I said, fragmented holding of Indian farmers, 1 to 1.5 hectares. And though we give them the advanced technology, then they don't know how to use it. So some of the things which we are trying to do, as I said, up to 1 hectare farmer, we are giving those things. We are giving irrigation software. But the basic thing we understood, I think others people have also said, is the localization. I mean, localization into the very easy to use app. So what we have done is now we are using some technology using WhatsApp to make sure that all the imagery as well as the recommendation gets to the farmer through the WhatsApp, because we believe that the farmers may not be able to use the application may not be able to navigate it. So that's what we are trying to do, and then we are trying to use as many Indian languages as possible. So most of the information we translated into the local languages. But as I said, the roadblock could be, even though this technology will come, but what we found, the farmers still need some local person there. Though we talk of all the digitization, we still need some person, either a local dealer or a local consultant, who can explain this technology to the farmer. So I think that link is somewhere missing. So it could be the universities, or either could be the government, who could be the bond between the small farmer, 1 hectare, 1.5 hectare, and this advanced technology.
Good point, sir. Absolutely valid, and must add that
So
globally,
startups would play a lot of role there,
right.
a lot of role there in taking these to the farmer.
So that's a gap in the Indian agri-food ecosystem, sir, that digitalization of agronomy services has not happened to a large extent in a hybrid model, which is offline as well as online, which companies globally, let's say Trimble does it very well in US and in other geographies. So quickly, I would like to welcome Mr. Doron Shalom. Thank you, sir, for joining the discussion. And in terms of Mr. Shalom's profile, he's the founder and managing partner of DS Ventures, CEO of MS Tech, and he brings diverse entrepreneurial and leadership experience from a range of high-tech sectors, including nanotechnology and the sensors industry. Quickly, Mr. Shalom, the question for you is that, again, how do we ensure faster adoption of advanced technologies at the grassroots levels, given the low adoption which has happened in the core agri-tech sectors, right? Things like a smart irrigation, quality assessment, farming as a service, vertical farming, all of that in countries like India in that context. I think your voice, you're not audible actually. You'll have to increase your volume. Yeah. Still not audible. Still not audible, Mr. Shalom. Anyways, then meanwhile, I would then like to move on to Ms. Nikita Nakrani. And the question, Nikita, for you is that, in recent times, we have seen an increased interest in investments in the agri-tech, agriculture sector, with venture capitalists investing as if there is no tomorrow, especially on the front-end side, right? Including guys like us, not much on the front end, but certainly in core agri-tech we've invested. And by the way, for the information and benefit of viewers, Social Alpha and NAB Ventures have done deals together as well in the agri-satellite data analytics space. So we invested together in a startup. So the question again, Nikita, for you is that, what kind of incubation, handholding, and investment support is being provided by Social Alpha to the agri entrepreneurs to reach their potential and more?
Sure. So essentially, Social Alpha is a mission-driven organization. We were set up back in 2016 as a multi-stage incubation cum investment platform for science and technology startups that address the most critical social, economic, and environmental challenges using the power of entrepreneurship and innovations. We are supported by the Tata Trust, the Department of Science and Technology, and Department of Biotech, BIDAC. Yeah, so there are about 500 plus agri-tech startups in the country and many new ones mushrooming every few weeks. But at the end of the day, only a handful of them have managed to scale and raise the kind of funding that we're talking about. Agriculture is certainly not an easy sector to operate in, given that the initial sales are relatively easy. Sustainability and scalability has been difficult. Agri-tech startups face a number of challenges, and I think as early stage incubators, we try and sort of address some of these challenges. So the challenges that we specifically look at also means the kind of support that we provide. So starting with, I think the first is the product market fit. Agroclimatic conditions, cropping patterns, market infrastructure, and farmer demographics vary across the country. There is no one-size-fits-all approach in agri-tech. Each region is different, each problem is different, that require very specific and localized solutions. Second is, of course, sales and marketing. Farmer as a customer is quite sticky when it comes to adopting a new technology, whether it's a product, a service, or a platform. And startups need to be able to create a deep sense of trust among farmers, which is not always an easy task. There's, of course, a need for strategic sales expertise to manage omni-channel distribution support and sustain strong on-ground connect to drive growth. Third is, of course, finance. So while a number of times startups manage to convince farmers to buy a particular product or a technology, they may not always have the resources to be able to afford that product given the high upfront investment. So there is, of course, a need for innovative product financing options. On the other hand, on the startup front, for that matter, given the long lead times, need for affordable working capital loans, which are not always easy to come by. Innovators and entrepreneurs, of course, are great when it comes to technology, but don't always have the right kind of business acumen and financial acumen to be able to impress the investor community. Fourth is, of course, sandbox facility. What ends up happening, especially with early stage startups, is that they need to constantly test and validate their technologies and business models with farmers, also with FPOs and community organizations, and constantly make iterations, which takes time and effort. Also, there's a need to kind of look at the regulatory and certification related aspects. It's not always too easy to crack partnerships with corporates, with commercial partners and others to test, scale, and commercialize the technologies. Fifth, of course, is human resources. Most early stage agri-tech startups are not able to attract or afford, let alone retain good qualified people. So there's also the always need for a whole set of technical experts, field specialists, business advisors, mentors, and others to sort of help scale the business. A lot of the support that Social Alpha provide is around these areas to be able to help them navigate the critical challenges that startups face. Social Alpha is essentially, the model itself is unique. We follow a 3-tier integrated stack across innovation curation, incubation, and investments. Under our innovation curation engine, we don't really start at the startup. We take one step back and we actually start with the problem statements or the challenges that actually exist on the ground. We collate these problem statements by interacting with a whole host of stakeholders, and then kind of help prioritize these problem statements based on urgency and scale of impact. We then kind of use these prioritized statements to start our search or curation for entrepreneurs. Next is our incubation engine. Under the incubation engine, our engagement model completely depends on the stage of this innovation and also the specific needs of the startup. We have dedicated portfolio managers that work very closely with startups to address their specific requirements. So if there's an early stage idea or a prototype stage, it typically falls under our Entrepreneur in Residence program or our Entrepreneur for Impact program, where we provide more sort of product development support, market research support, mentoring support, and knowledge services. If the startup is at a minimum viable product stage, it falls under our incubation program, where we provide support in terms of product design testing, prototyping, access to incubation labs, the technology labs, design and manufacturing consulting, and we also facilitate some of the initial pilots on the ground with farmers and FPOs. If startups are in are market ready, then we try and they're at that early revenue stage. They fall under our acceleration program, where we provide support in terms of product market fit, go-to-market strategy, market access, and giving the extensive grassroots network that we have on the ground. Eventually, coming to the last engine, which is the investment engine, we truly believe that given that we're a not-for-profit and we have philanthropy funding that we use to invest in startups, we believe that we can take that risk. So we use this sort of patient capital approach, and we want to invest in businesses which are early stage yet risky, and in areas where others may not really fund. So we obviously provide seed support. We also do grant funding for organizations and also facilitate working capital financing. All in all, I think Social Alpha tries to play the role of an ecosystem enabler and helps collaborate with different stakeholders in the agri-tech ecosystem to help scale startups.
Great. Thank you. A very useful advice for startups, and Social Alpha is doing a lot of good work, must say. Again, over to Mr. Shalom. Now, I hope your audio quality has been resolved. So, sir, the question for you is again same thing. Low adoption of advanced technologies and smart farming at the last mile is a major barrier to sectoral advancements, especially in countries like India. How do you ensure faster adoption of advanced technologies at the grassroots level? And also, you can talk about MS Tech and the good work that you're doing at DS Ventures.
Okay, so am I audible now?
Yes.
Great. So thank you everyone for the opportunity to talk today. I'd like to start and say that it's very exciting to hear all these things that are being said, because like a feeling of fusion. Everything that we feel and see in India in the last period is being merged. It's great to hear and merge all these things into this discussion. I have to say that from our experience in Israel, being Israelis and working in India for quite a while now, what we have decided to do is that we are entering the agri-tech and the food sector by kind of replicating what we have successfully done in the defense sector in India. So MS Tech is dealing with sensors. We invent, manufacture, and design nanotechnology sensors for a range of applications. And the challenge that we see is when you design and you develop a system, if the system has to be operated by humans, that's one case. If it has to be installed and work automatically without any human intervention, that's another case. And what we basically feel, and that's what we're doing right now, is that we have to jump one generation of technology, meaning that the combination of India being a huge market with very remote locations, combined with now this year the unexpected COVID-19 issues that we cannot even send technicians, we cannot be there to support a customer or a farmer or any other customer that needs our support, is leading us to jump and merge the agri-tech sensors to IoT. So our approach is to combine everything from the farm to the cloud. And by being in Israel, we can basically give all the support and the remote diagnostics through the cloud. Now, there was another very important factor that was mentioned a few minutes ago, is how do you give a technology, an instrument, which is relatively considered to be expensive in the hands of a farmer? How do you trust a farmer to hold such equipment? And we have to take into account also the human resistance to change. I mean, it's not just about farmers. I just, look at myself and I say, how long did it take me to use Windows 10 when I had Windows 8 before? I did not want to change. And if Windows come up with Windows 11, I'm not sure I'll be the first one to adopt it. So I put myself in the shoes of a farmer and I say, let's give them something that is cutting edge technology, but we do not have to force them to think or to go through some type of learning curve. The only thing we want them is to use the technology, the instrument right, and let us do all the work for them remotely. And that's the beauty, I think, because India is all interconnected. There's mobile, 4G almost in every location that we have been interacting with. And this work that we do through smart technology connected to the cloud and reporting enables us to solve the headaches of COVID-19 and not being able to be with the customer or the farmer, at every specific location when required.
Okay, thank you. I think I think we have reached the end now. Like all good things must come to an end. So this discussion, it's very, very enlightening, and I would certainly want to continue, but I think we have reached the time limit now. So I would like to thank each one of you, each participant, for putting forward your enlightening views. I certainly believe that agri-tech is the future, and work for it must start now. And thank you once again, dear panelists, for taking out time for this enriching session. Many thanks to DST and FICCI for giving us the opportunity by organizing this much needed event. Thank you. Thank you once again. Bye for me. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. It was a pleasure having you all here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vicky, and all the panelists.